Well, good evening, Mayor and City Council. It's a distinct pleasure and honor to be here tonight to be able to present the proposed 2024 budget and present it as a balanced budget. And as I kick off the presentation tonight, I do want to just acknowledge and thank all the tremendous amount of work and dedication that the staff of this organization has done to put this budget together for this year. I want to recognize our Finance Director, Troy Wu, and all his work and his team in the Finance Department. All of the directors, they've done a great job of bringing proposals forward and conscious of the fiscal responsibilities of the city, as well as all their staff and their departments, looking at what are the truly needs of the city. And even though we have, it's always a culling process, but also being supportive of that process. So I did want to thank everybody for all their work to put this together. But as you know, and it's stated tonight, the budget this night is one of the most important things that the City Council and the organization of the city does on behalf of the public. As the budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan and operations guide, this proposed 2024 budget highlights priorities, planned investments, and measures to continue a sustainable and resilient organization and community. This budget reflects policies, goals, and priorities of this body, the City Council, as well as the community, as has been informed by community engagement and surveys that have been conducted over the past several years. It also acts as a roadmap for the coming year for providing guidance for our operational decision making. The 2024 budget includes a significant amount of continued investment in critical infrastructure within the community, utilities, street systems, parks, as well as facilities, specifically with the construction of the new police station. And this is very significant. This is a $61.5 million project and signifies the first expansion of city facilities since around 2008. And if you think about that and the tremendous growth we have seen, this is a key step in providing expansion of those facilities to serve the needs of the public. It is also a critical need for our police department, who have significantly outgrown that current space that they've been operating in since 1985. But also I want to just recognize too, and looking forward, that this is the first step into the need for a continued investment into our existing buildings or for our facilities as our will need to continue as our existing buildings age and the organization grows and outgrows these facilities in responding to the growing community needs. The city is still facing impacts and challenges of the rapidly growing and expanding community, and we've seen that over the last several years, as I'll talk about a little bit more later in my presentation. And as we know, as development occurs, infrastructure expands and population grows, that puts more pressure on the organization to try and keep pace and maintain the level of services, programs, and staff resources to serve those growing demands. All this with the limited amount of revenue growth and capacity to raise funds. Now, looking back, it's been a few years in our rearview mirror, but you add in a global pandemic and the subsequent labor disruption that caused. I would like to say the city has done a very good job over the past several years of being very resilient in responding to those changes and those unknown circumstances or unforeseen circumstances. But also, too, as we get that in our rearview mirror, we still have challenges facing us when we look forward. With a looming inflationary environment that's causing climbing interest rates that affect both public and private investment. We have inconsistent supply chain, as we just talked about, with trying to lead times with charging and other type of building supplies. And then there's also the challenges of recruiting and retaining staff. That's all kind of the puzzle that we're going to be trying to tackle as a community and as an organization as we look forward. But in response to these pressures and uncertainties, it is imperative for the city to maintain sound financial practices, continue to deliver core services at the current levels, and focus on key council and community priorities. This budget that I will summarize tonight does so and reflects those policies and priorities established by the council. And before I get into into the, I just lost my notes. Into this budget summary, I do want to take a few minutes to look at the community in a snapshot and some of the past trends we've seen over the last 10 years. So, this. All right, I just lost my screen, so I'm gonna have to look at the screen up here.
Roll with it.
Give me 1 second, give one more chance here. As I try to get my screen back, this is just kind of at a glance at our community. Of course, the city of Lacey has grown and evolved to a community of just under 60,000 people. And if you've been here around this community for a long time, it's definitely has grown and changed. And a lot of that for the better. We're gaining more diversity. We're getting a really enriched community and community members. And out of that, that growth we've seen over the last many years, we also have quite a bit of housing that we are now providing. Total units is just under 25,000 total housing units in the community. Of those, 54% are owner occupied, and about 46% are renter occupied. So a fairly good mix of housing opportunities. Also, as we've seen we've seen skyrocketing prices in housing that could continue. As of this past year, our median home price for sale is about $505,000. That's dropped a little bit in the recent environment of interest rates increase, but currently we're at about $505,000 of a median house price. And then, of course, the average rent, which is also we've seen a lot of multifamily being constructed over the last several years. Our average rent for an 845 square foot apartment has climbed up to about $1,700 a month, which is quite a big increase in rent. But as we try to, look at other aspects of our community, we have a pretty strong economy and foundation in our business. We have about just over 1,400 businesses in the city of Lacey. And those businesses provide enough jobs to employ just over 23,000 employees. We also have seen a lot of development over the past 25 years in commercial and industrial, specifically in the industrial sector. So we now have just over 15 million square feet of commercial and industrial space. Our vacancy rates within those areas have gone up and down over the last 10 years, but currently countywide, we see a commercial vacancy rate of just around 10%, industrial in the 4% factor, and retail in 5%, and then multifamily at 5.2%. And that 5.2%, I just want to point out in watching the market, when we switch from a predominant single-family home production in the community to multifamily, that multifamily vacancy rate was dropping down to the 2%, which is a very, very low percentage number, and which kind of would drive that rapid growth of multifamily units, and then also that kind of contributes to the overall rise in rental costs. So looking back over the last just 10 years, and then we've seen significant growth in the community, and this is kind of the pressures that the organization has been looking at and responding to. Just over the last 10 years, we've had a population increase of just over 14,000 people. And to put that in a little bit about a perspective, the city of Yelm population at this, in 2022 is just over 10,000 people. So just this growth alone in population would be about the fourth largest community in the county. We added on about another 4,000 housing units over the past 10 years, as well as 9.8 million square feet in commercial and industrial. And I do want to point out that number a little bit, because in terms of commercial and industrial, most of that development is in our industrial large footprint in our distribution categories. We have not seen any significant commercial expansion since about 2008, the 2008 recession, which that reset our retail footprint significantly. So we don't see the large expansion of retail commercial like we once did. So that is a sector that's still been slowing, and something we still need to focus on how we develop more retail opportunities. And then, of course, over this last 10 years, we've had several annexations that total to about another 1,500 acres added to the jurisdiction of the city of Lacey, and bringing with that just over 2,800 individuals. During this time, I wanted to point out also too, what's that effect on the organization and trying to keep pace. And the best way to look at it is over the last several budget cycles, the positions that were created. And so over the past roughly 10 years, we've added 88 new employees to the city of Lacey to try to meet that growth. And I believe it's over the last 6 years that we actually added 66 additional employees. And one of the challenges that creates is now not only the community expanded quite rapidly, but the organization itself is as well. And with that, it's not just maintaining the same services and programs. We've actually added new programs that during that time as well that we haven't historically done. Programs such as, we just heard tonight, climate action coordination, regional housing coordination type issues, homeless response, stormwater compliance, which in that utility, we try to create a new utility and meet the state requirements for inspections, which cause an employee increase. So again, when we look at the total number of employees increase over that time, it's not just to maintain the existing programs, it's also in response to adding on new programs as well. So, but with all that said, we're still looking forward, and we still have quite a few private development projects that are in the mix that we'll see coming online or in the pipeline. And of course, this is also dependent on how, again, any delays in terms of financing and those type of things. But out in the Northeast area, we are excited about the new tech equipment site coming online. They are looking to open in November and have a formal grand opening this next spring. And tech equipment is a Volvo Mack truck dealership, and they also have repairs and parts sales out of that location. They will also have more retail pads that will be closer to Willamette, so we'll see that as potential future expansion of some of our commercial or retail footprint.
This will be the first time we've had a automotive dealership come to Lacey in a long time, right?
Yes. We haven't had a new vehicle dealership since I believe CarPros had left the Lacey Boulevard, Pacific Avenue area. Also coming on the ground and open up, and if you have not been there, it's a nice little place to be, is our 23 Kitchens. It's actually Hoban Bay Town Center, but one of their anchor tenants is 23 Kitchens, which is a restaurant and pickleball entertainment type facility. And there seems to be a lot of activity and league play starting to play out there with the indoor and outdoor courts. And also we have about 70,000 square feet of total retail square footage. But also the real exciting thing about this project is the next phase, which is going to be the residential portion. Another 350 units, more urban style, a work-live style, a mixture of units, work-live style, townhouse, and apartments in a central courtyard. And again, it's starting to establish that more urban style form and development that has been anticipated and planned for quite some time out in the Hawkes Prairie Business District area.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Is that the pad next to 23 Kitchens, or the pad that's closer to the foreground?
The 23 Kitchens is on the right side of the drawing with the grass, and you can see this little rectangle goes for the pickleball courts.
So right here.
Where will the new housing be?
It'll be in the foreground,
Yeah.
in the dirt, and then we're, on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the footprints in the internal courtyard parking lots.
That's gonna be awesome.
I just got my screen back, so let's see if I can get caught up here. Also, out in the northeast area off of Britton Parkway, next to Providence Medical Center, is plans for a Marriott Hotel to expand some of our hospitality. We haven't had new hotel development for quite some time, so would be excited for that. And that will also help support, again, our lodging tax dollars, and help support tourism in the area through that potential revenue growth.
When do we think that will come online?
They've received land use approval, and they need to start going into the civil construction drawing phase as well as building permit application. We haven't received those yet.
And is that going to be a Residence Inn or?
I'm not sure what level of Marriott, but I can find that out.
Okay, thank you.
So switching to the Midtown area, we've seen a lot of, activity and growth in investment in the Midtown area, and we've talked about this for some time, but this is the 7th Avenue Apartments that's currently moving forward with some off-site infrastructure improvements. If you notice that 7th Avenue, there's been some sewer system upgrades. Plans are to potentially break ground on this sometime late 2024. Again, this is going to be another 350 units, multi-story. It's going to start forming the district and creating that streetscape along 7th Avenue. And again, starting to, this and several other investments in this area, they'll be coming forward as well. Yeah.
Will they be taking us up on any of our offers for below market, maybe some tax exemptions, or have we made it that far yet?
They will be looking at the multifamily tax exemption program. The Midtown area is the only place that's authorized by council. They more than likely will look at the 8-year market rate, not the 12-year low-income portion. There's not a restriction to require one or the other. It's at the developer's choice. For 6th Avenue Place that they just recently developed with the Pines and Courts Doghouse, that's been a multifamily tax exemption project that's for market rate. Way that process works, they'll make application, it'll go through, make sure it qualifies, and then come to council for the final approval. Also, oops, back up.
Going the wrong way.
So also around Huntermer Park, on the opposite side of Huntermer Park, there's a vacant office building that is also going to be, applications come in to start looking at converting that to residential as well. Support about 50 apartment units, and then be right across the street from Huntermer Park. And then finally, the south building that's right adjacent to the park, where you, on the other side of the 7th Avenue Hub Residential, they're also going to be renovating that office building, repurposing it for office space, but also activate the lower piece that directly faces the park into a restaurant. So you're starting to see a lot of the investment in and around Midtown starting to occur. That this was planned for 20-some years ago through the Downtown 2000 plan that was done in the late 90s, then eventually Woodland District strategic plan. But now you're starting to see that long-term planning investments and policy set starting to be paid off in investments, which will help, again, infill parking lots and get more value into the city. Also, we have the off-campus emergency departments being developed by Multicare at the corner of Golf Club and Pacific. They are almost complete, and they're looking at potentially opening that up with the ribbon cutting sometime in December. So with switching from commercial to some of the building permit activity, again, this is what you can see over the last 8 years or so in terms of single family home permits in the lower darker portion of the bar and the multifamily in the blue. In 2023, we have year to date issued permits for 61 multifamily units and 88 single family homes. We had a few plats come in off of 15th Avenue that has raised our activity for single family development permits. in the pipeline for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. We'll still see some consistent development with another 291 single-family lots that we should come online, as well as about 1,800 multifamily units. So I just wanted to illustrate that a little bit to kind of set the stage for the, yes. Councilmember Vasquez?
I don't want to blow up.
You're breaking up pretty good. You're breaking up pretty good.
We got none of that.
How many condos?
How many condos?
There, currently, I'm not aware of any condos being proposed at this time in those 1,800 units. I know we have 2 condo projects up on Meridian campus that are just finishing out and building out and coming online. To my knowledge, that's the only condo project activity that I'm aware of at this point.
I guess I have one question. We're seeing a bunch of private investment in our Midtown, and it's something that's very exciting. We've been looking for private investment in our Midtown, as you said, for 20 years. This council has talked about putting public investment to meet some of that private investment. Does this budget include, your proposed budget include some public investment in that area? We've talked about looking at Hunter Park and maybe doing a splash park in that area and doing some other public improvements to make it more attractive area for the public to come to. And I'm just curious as if your budget has those.
It does. As council has assigned reserves for strategic investments in the economic development vein, and we're going to have those funds are going to be utilized to create some more investments within the Midtown area. A couple of projects you'll see coming forward to council for review and authorize would be looking at expanding the Midtown branding program. We've installed the wraps and the utility boxes this past year, and we'll be expanding that to the banners. We'll also be looking at doing improvements to Hunter Park, as you mentioned. Not necessarily a splash pad, but creating some type of interactive water feature, a hardscape plaza that kind of builds off of all the residential that's going in there, kind of create more of a urban park / backyard type of feel. And then also, I'll talk about this one a little bit later, but the starting design work on a roundabout intersection at 7th and College. And so there's some substantial investment from the city of Lacey, and the council has looked towards to try to also help facilitate some of this reinvestment by the private sector into Midtown and meet that vision of the Woodland District Strategic Plan and the Downtown 2000 Plan. So I wanted to kind of give a sense, talking about where we've been and kind of where we kind of see where we're going in terms of community growth and expansion. But really, our 2024 budget is predicated. And as I get into our budget, I first want to kind of start talking about what's the approach that we took in preparing the budget. So this kind of outlines what we focused on, and this is all, of course, based on available funding. How much we have in reserve, but also more importantly, how much are we going to have in projected revenues to meet some of the expanding services and staffing resources. So as we approach the budget sector, we wanted to first make sure we're in line with the council fiscal policies adopted in 2013. And just kind of give a snippet with the tenor of those policies. They include, first thing they say is incorporate the council priorities. Make sure you have adequate maintenance and replacement of city facilities and equipment. And expenditures should not exceed projected revenues, and proposed operating expenditures are supported from ongoing revenues. And this budget's coming forward, after that, large expansion we've had over the last 3 or 4 years, to try to get into that vein of, okay, now we need to have a stabilizing year, kind of make sure we're moving forward, we're not overextending ourselves, and this budget does this. After that, then we look at make sure we're maintaining our existing levels of service. I mean, that's very important that we don't go backwards, that we maintain level of services, and then implement the council work priorities. And then finally, start addressing critical needs, and then if we do have capacity, to expand program and services. So that's the approach that we took in preparing this budget for the council's consideration. Now, we mentioned the council's work plan priorities. I think the council recalls going through an exercise to set up a 3-year plan, or 2023, 2024, and 2025. And this lays out the various categories or themes in the council priorities. And as you see those little blue boxes next to those topics, you'll see throughout the presentation on our projects, those boxes that identify that's a council priority being implemented into the budget. And again, this is something that has been very valuable to have as a guide moving forward, and also a benchmark for council to weigh the budget. So the 2024 proposed total budget is coming in at just under $300 million this coming year. Now, there's an increase in that budget because there's a lot of capital facility projects coming online, both in our utilities as well as the police station, as I mentioned. Our general fund is increasing, as well as several other funds. But there's some positive there. So this is a chart that shows the 2024 proposed budget to the 2023 revised budget. So as you go down the list from top to bottom, you'll notice that our general fund has increased by almost just over 13%. And again, a lot of that has to do with some of the capital projects coming on board for this coming year. You also see our capital projects increase. And again, in funding some of our projects, we're having to take general fund reserves to transfer over to them. So that's why you see that increase in both categories. Special revenue has a decline by 30%. That's primarily in our lodging tax dollars. And if council recalls, last year, this council authorized $250,000 of lodging tax reserves to fund for the remodel of the Washington Center, and that's what that number represents. Then we go into the debt service, and that has also gone down 20%. It's always good to buy down our debt. And that's primarily from paying off a voter-approved bond for parks that was issued, I think, back in 2012.
When's the last of our debt service done? 2026?
2026 is when our second and last voter-approved measure is paid off.
Okay.
And then, of course, we got our utility funds. We have some substantial utility improvements coming forward in 2024. And then in our general service funds, which is the budget fund that looks at all of our equipment and cars and vehicles. And so we're looking at a little increase in budget for 2024 vehicle replacement and equipment.
I have a real quick question about our utility funds.
Yep.
Obviously, that's a substantial increase. One of the things this council's been talking about for a while and we've been made aware of is our water meters. Like, I know that we had to, we came to a situation where the technology was, pretty old. We were trying to upgrade it. We've since then had to hire some, temporary staff to go out and read water meters. I'm just trying to remember where we're at in that process. Have we made a decision to go with the new technology and that's what we're seeing here? Or are we still assessing what we're going to do with our water meters and which way we're going to go?
Yeah, it's more the second, Mr. Mayor. Within this area, we ran into the same supply chain issues as many areas. Mm-hmm. We spent about a year without getting any meter replacements, which made the problem even worse, and we're still trying to recover from that. So, the council authorized a number of temporary positions, 2-year positions. We're probably looking at another year. I mean, we haven't got to that point yet to make that decision, but we essentially lost a year just really treading water. So as those meters failed, we used those positions to actually do manual reads. I mean, we went completely backwards in terms of technology. So really, we're still in that evaluation period and we're just not ready to come back to the council for recommendation.
Okay. So so we're just letting the meters sort of fail at this point, and then we're going to come to a decision on if we're going to get the new model or not.
Well, we're making up lost ground, but we're, like I said, we lost a year. So we've been replacing meters. We did finally start to get the deliveries of those meters. We did upgrade a software system. That was really kind of a forced system because the old one was no longer going to be supported. Yeah. So we've made progress, but we certainly haven't made the progress that we thought we were going to make in that first year.
Okay, thank you.
So now I want to take a little deeper dive into the general fund. And again, just to reiterate, the general fund budget for this year is just over $87 million. Then go into the funding sources for the general fund. It's primarily made up of sales, property, and utility tax, as well as B&O and emission and gambling. Those taxes make up 44% of the funds for this year of income. The other category, 39%, again, that's the cash transfers, some miscellaneous, and other type of fund that we'll have some more detail a little bit later in the presentation. And then, of course, permits and fees. That's where, construction permits, building permits, parks fees, those type of things go in to make up the permits and fees. So for this coming year, we're seeing a sales tax. We're projecting about $17 million in sales tax collection. Property increasing a little bit to 8.7 million, and utility 8.5. Some modest increases year over year. Wanted to show this chart just to kind of get a sense of how the growth of sales tax has gone over the last 10 years. And these numbers are based on the projected sales tax in the previous budget documents. And as you can see, it's just kind of been a slowly increase. But then you have that big dip in 2020. And again, these are budget projection numbers. I just wanted to highlight this because that's, again, a good testament to this organization and the council that in 2020, when the pandemic hit, nobody knew what effect that was going to have with everything shutting down. So that's where we pivoted, did some exercises to figure out what do we need to do to adjust our revenue projections, how do we delay projects and try to get make sure that we weren't substantially impacted by the potential financial impacts of the pandemic. Fortunately, what we found out through that pandemic was, with increased population growth, the transition to online purchasing, and also and stores considered to be essential were able to stay open in Lacey, and that was key. Because you think about the stores, grocery stores are being essential, and most of our grocery stores, they kind of pivoted away from a single use to the Targets, Walmarts, and Fred Meyer's that could stay open as essential services, and so people still get other goods and services as well. That all happened despite the lack of retail expansion that we haven't seen since 2008. But again, I want to caution you looking forward that at some point this is going to plateau if we don't have more commercial expansion, because as population starts to decline, then those numbers may decline as well. And then just a graphic how sales tax is collected. Again, our current, in the city of Lacey, the sales tax distribution or sales tax collection is at 9.5%. This chart just illustrates that the city of Lacey actually collects less than 1% of that total 9.5%, or in other words, 85 cents on the dollar. And in this graphic, you see that the state collects 6.5 cents. There's 2 cents in local option sales tax, and 15 cents that go to Thurston County. And this chart just goes a little more detail of how we get to our 9.5%, and it compares it to also the city of Olympia and Tumwater. And I think that just the important thing to point out is there's with the local option sales tax, it authorizes local governments to collect up to 1%. However, for cities, 15/10 goes to the county, and the cities collect 0.85%. And then as you put on the local options with Interstate Transit, the Transportation District, the various home funds, you can see how that chart lays out that all the jurisdictions are at 9.5%, but they get there in little different ways. So switching to property tax, this is our projection for property tax going into 2024. Property tax is going to increase just over 2%. To about $8.7 million. That's about just over a $210,000 increase from previous year. And again, it's important to point out, as you see this chart, this slowly goes, property tax is limited to a 1% increase, with the exception for new assessed value that comes on the roll. And so this, for 2024, represents our 1% increase if the council exercise that option, as well as the new assessed value that's coming from construction in the previous year. So you always will look at property tax levies and levy rates, and that's always that comes down to the bottom line. And I wanted to show this chart as just a good illustration. You know, as the top of the green shade goes up, that's the increase in assessed valuation in the city of Lacey community. So for 2024, we're looking at about a $12 billion assessed valuation, which is about just under a $500 million decrease from the previous year. And a lot of that has to do with how the market has recalibrated over the past year. But you see the substantial growth in that assessed valuation, especially in 2022, 2023, and that's indicative of all the large industrial facilities that's come online. But as that assessed valuation goes up, usually the levy rate goes down. And when the assessed value goes down, the levy rate goes up. And the reason is we're allowed to collect a maximum levy. And this year it's going to be the $8.7 million. And then that is spread out amongst all the assessed value, and that's what gets to your levy rate of 0.72. And this is always the challenge of trying to explain how the property tax rate is collected. So this is just a chart that kind of walks through that. These numbers aren't actual City of Lacey numbers for 2024. We tried to set it up so it could be easy to follow. But again, in step one, if the levy for the current year or previous year is $7.9 million, shown in step one in the center of the slide. You exercise the 1%. You add that 1% to the total levy of, to create an $8 million. And you can see in between that step is the 1% equals 79 million and some change. So you create a levy rate of $8 million. Then you take that and divide it by the assessed value. That's divided by 1,000 to get your levy rate. And that's what gets down to the 0.667 in this diagram. For 2024, if the council exercised the 1% provision, that will add about just around $84,000 to our levy, and which is always critical to keep up as best we can with inflation and cost. So again, this is a slide that shows the major fund sources for the general fund. And again, as you look down there, sales tax is our most predominant source, followed by our service fees, then property tax, and our utility tax, and then B&O tax. And again, down at the bottom is that other revenue that was represented in that pie chart previously as 39%. And again, that represents our transfers in and out of the fund, miscellaneous and other taxes and reserves. So that is the funding source for our general fund. So this now going on to expenditures. So this is all the departments within the City of Lacey, from Public Works, Police, Admin Support Services, which is basically the city managers, Human Resources, and Public Affairs Office, as well as our Parks and Culture Recreation, Community Economic Development, and our Common Facilities and Social Services, or Human Services. And you can see each one of those categories, 16 million for Public Works and expenditures, down to 17 million for police. This is all out of the general fund. And of course, you can see the employee numbers within each one of those departments. And again, this makes up our total expenditures of about 87 million, just over $87 million. So just a kind of quick snapshot of what goes into some of these funds. This is the cost of parks, culture, and recreation, what makes up that total number. So you have numbers that relate to parks maintenance and all other parks. And again, as we add on facilities, as we expand, those numbers will continue to go up because we'll need to add staff resources to support that. You have Rainier Vista operations, the regional athletic complex operations, aquatics, and our parks and recreation programs. Next, this is the amount of general fund dollars that go into maintaining our streets. It totals about $4.7 million, and you can see the breakdown over to the right of the column, what goes into sidewalk maintenance, signs, markings, street lighting, roadside maintenance, as well as general street department activities. One of the things I want to clarify, and this is one of the things that council took action several years ago, was to establish the Transportation Benefit District as a vote of the public to add a 0.2% onto the City of Lacey sales tax collection. That's been instrumental in maintaining our streets because in addition to the $4.7 million of general fund, we also have the TBD fund, which totals, I think, around $5.5 million to also help support with our pavement management programs and some sidewalk maintenance repairs or sidewalk maintenance as well. So again, leveraging local authority to impose taxes and general fund dollars is being able to make our general fund dollars go further.
I actually have a quick question, and it's for going last slide for the Parks and Recreation. We spend a little over $3 million on Parks and Recreation, but we also charge fees, and we also do other things to bring in dollars. How much does that offset that $3 million? So we spend about $3 million. How much do we get in park fees and other things to help offset that $3 million?
Yeah, so we cover, our commitment is to cover all the direct costs. And so that's, any part-time staff and supplies and professional services to run those programs. So I want to say our revenues were at $850,000 for general programs. And then there's also the revenue that's generated by the facility rentals and the park shelter rentals. Mm-hmm. So on a good year, it's about $1.2 million that come in.
Great.
So, and that's like a pre-COVID type of a year.
Pre-COVID type of year. So we're still, to run our parks and rec programs, we're still at least, not quite $2 million deficit, but it's up there.
It's subsidized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
On that same topic, are we getting close to our pre-COVID numbers again? Are we getting back pretty close to that?
Yeah.
Great.
Definitely.
Thank you.
And to kind of just add on to the fees, in community economic development, you have your land use and permitting fees too, and those don't cover full costs, and those are some of the things that we have to take another look at in the distant future in terms of where we at on our cost recovery for those services and how do we balance that. So streets, and then the cost of public safety, and here's a, when we think of public safety, that's one of the several priorities we have as a community to our citizens, our community members, and and you look at the total cost we have. Our police department services is just under 17 million. But total cost is 19 million because you got to add in the court services, jail services, as well as the prosecution. And so with that, as you can see, that's one of our bigger expenditures in terms of the general fund, and exceeds our sales tax revenue and takes a portion of our property tax if you took it in buckets like that. Just, again, as we look at that, that's why it's very important that we try to find these other revenue services to continue to expand and be able to, or serve, expand the community. So again, going back to the general fund breakdown, in the expenditures, you can see most of those expenditures are in our most valuable asset, our staff in our organization. They're the ones that are on the ground. They're the ones interacting with the public and our community members, and trying to meet their needs with the highest quality possible that they can do. So again, 67% of the fund expenditures is in salaries and benefits. So next, I want to get into, in the budget, our workforce enhancements. Now, again, as we looked at our revenues and our expenditures, we are not able to add a lot of enhancements in the general fund capacity. So we're looking at just a couple of positions, but we looked at those positions as positions that had either funding that came with it or were supported by ongoing revenues. The first position I would like to highlight, and this is something the council's been anticipating with the conversations over the past year, is a communications manager being placed in public affairs. Now, this position would be a supervisor of the public affairs staff. They'll be overseeing our television production and governmental services. and our communication plans, and, this will be a transition from the TC Media, which the contract would be expiring at the end of this year. As we had the conversations, the council was very clear about wanting to continue to support TC Media services, but it's funded through a partnership of all the local jurisdictions. The other local jurisdictions are stepping away, so we need to be prepared to take those provisions in-house. We were able to add this position because we were able to support it with some of the funding that we had in that contract for TC Media, so about $130,000, and then also using PEG fees and reserves to also purchase the capital equipment that we will need to set up our system to broadcast future council meetings. And one other item of note, because this transition will be occurring in January, that if this is something that the council is supportive of and give us some early indications, we're going to need to start preparing for transition so that we don't have an interruption of service once the contract expires at the end of December. So we want to be able to start doing some early recruitment and setting up for that eventual transition.
So if the council got that right, this is our proposed 2024 budget. So we're not funding this position until next year. However, on January 1st, we have to bring everything in-house.
Yep.
And so it's my recommendation that even though this is not until January 1st, that we actually, authorize our city manager to start the process now, so we have people in place. And we may not even get that person in place by January 1st, because you know how long it takes to find people. But I don't think we can wait till January 1st and then try to put this all on John and say, hey, John, you figure it out, until we actually get people in place to actually do it, right? And so it's my recommendation that we authorize the city manager to actually start looking for the communications manager right now in preparation for January 1st. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Is that a motion?
That's my motion.
And that's what I'm saying,
Second
a
that.
second.
No, I
amendment
don't
to the
know
motion.
if we need a motion, but what we, just make you aware that we will start doing some groundwork, but we might not fill the position until January, but we need to start planning that process and getting it set so we don't have.
Well, you'll need a motion for us to do a budget amendment. So are you going to do that after the fact, or what, Troy?
Welcome back to us with that.
I don't believe we'll need an amendment. I think we have capacity within the budget, so I don't think we need an official motion, as the city manager said. So, but general consensus to move ahead, we'll do exactly that.
62 days.
It only makes sense. I mean, I appreciate you having January 1st be day one, but we obviously need this person in place before then, because on day one, on January 1st, we need them to start producing.
As well as some equipment before then, right?
And the equipment, right? Where are we doing for equipment?
And I'm going to have
If I-
to kick it over to Shannon, and she'll be able to fill in on the strategy.
If I could, well, good evening, council. So just, I guess, a little bit of update. So we are looking currently at some of the capital equipment purchases, and that is kind of our primary goal right now, is to make sure that we have that in place around January 1st, as close as possible as we possibly can. And so we are finalizing some decisions on what we want to do and move forward with equipment purchases. I think, like the city manager, highlighted with the process of, getting started with the anticipation that we could hopefully bring somebody on very early on in 2024. I do think it is feasible that we would have a stopgap approach, but it is something that we would certainly want to have somebody available on the communication staff as soon as possible. But I do think we do have the resources, the resiliency and the reserve to figure out a way to do it for a short period of time, but we'd like to get moving as soon as possible.
So is there a possibility on January 1st, we don't have enough equipment to do a live broadcast of our council meeting?
I think you need to maybe just a little distinction there with a live broadcast. We would certainly be able to stream, and it would look very similar to how we're streaming right now. However, the difference would be cable casting. And so we would need some additional technology to cable cast. And so we are going to try to finalize those orders as soon as possible and get that equipment installed. So it'd be a difference of, could somebody access it via the internet, or could somebody access it via cable?
Okay. So we should be able to Facebook and our YouTube channel should be good to
Correct.
go. We're just not quite yet to get it on cable unless some equipment comes in.
And
Correct, and that's, again, certainly something we're looking to try to get that infrastructure in place as soon as possible.
if we're not cable casting on January 1, we're not out of compliance?
There is no requirement that the city cable cast.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I think you've gotten our direction. We obviously appreciate staff's, trying to piece that together in the meantime, but I think we need to have that person there as soon as we can. So
I would say that for someone that was prepared to vote for Lacey to fund all of TC Media, regardless of who's in it and who's not, that we should definitely support this. I mean, it's sooner
Great.
rather than later.
Thank you.
Yep.
And thank you, Shannon. Yeah. So our next program enhancement is in our police department and the safe and secure community priorities for the council. And in there we have 2 new positions, well, 1 position and a backfill. We are funding a digital forensic investigator, and this will be an individual, it'll be a non-commissioned employee that will be able to go in and access phones and laptop and electronics to pull evidence and information off of those for investigation purposes, and then also be able to testify in court proceedings to that evidence. And what this will do is use the chief's expression as a force multiplier, because currently our detectives are having to do that, and they may not have all those skills, so it takes time, takes them away from other work that they can be doing, and then also the time it takes to testify in court on those issues. So this is something that will free up capacity for the detectives to do more of that investigative work that they're trained to do. We'll also add a police officer position, but when I say add, as we've talked about the challenges of recruitment and the time frame it takes to train somebody hired to be a commissioned officer on the street by going through the state academy process. One of the things that the chief and the police department have done successfully is have Lacey police staff stationed up there as instructors. And when they're positioned up there as an instructor, then the Criminal Justice Training Commission will fund that position. So if they're funding that position, we're going to backfill and fund an additional position so we don't lose a body out of our department. So that will be a position that will be making sure that we can maintain the status quo. We'll also provide some funding in there to provide 2 more members of our department to participate in crisis negotiation and the regional SWAT team. And then another thing that we identified is trying to make sure we can keep officers healthy and through a wellness program that's tailored for law enforcement personnel called Cigna Tactical Wellness. And so that's another program we're going to onboard this coming year to provide as a benefit to our law enforcement personnel.
Before we go any further, obviously this council tonight took action saying if the public safety tax were to pass, give some direction of how we'd spend those dollars. Given that the lead time we know on how long it takes to get police officers through the system, my recommendation would be, before the end of the year, if we know that public safety has passed, that this council start the process of looking to adding some more police officers, this calendar year, to at least give some direction this calendar year, even though it's going to take a little bit while to have them online. And so I'm not sure what that process looks like, but obviously we should know by mid-November the outcome of that. And I would say at that point the council should get right on looking at what we do with those dollars.
If I can make a suggestion, because that's the next point's a little bit minimized from the rest of the bullets up on the screen, but pending that Proposition 1, the idea would be once it passed, then we'll start working on what are all those various needs that we have and how we can utilize the fund to develop a list of options for council to take a look at. And we are looking at scheduling a retreat at the end of January to talk about this financial strategy. And this is one of those pieces that we can focus on in January, start setting the stage for that budget amendment in March, and timing and how we start moving this forward to make sure that, one, we're not acting too quickly, where we might be, but we have a more deliberate approach of how we're going to be able to use those funds for the most critical need.
And so we can bring that to a work session once this vote is completed?
What the city manager suggesting is we wait to our retreat.
Because one of the reasons that I would like to do that is so we can also make sure that we're able to put all the information together for the council. And I think maybe Troy could probably add some other commentary to this.
Sure. I would add that in terms of cash flow and when we would expect that tax, we wouldn't see any of those tax dollars until mid-year.
Sure. Oh, I understand. I'm just saying, I also know how long it takes for the lead time.
Yep.
And,
Find somebody.
I think it's worth at least a discussion at some point. I'm not sure if I'm even comfortable waiting. I'll wait to the retreat to have discussion of at least maybe the thought of getting started on hiring a couple more police officers.
It's a very good point, and it is a challenge, that lead time, and some of the efforts that the police department's instilled and chiefs instilled is recruitment, trying to get laterals, but also too, we currently have open positions that we still need to fill. And so there's two hills we need to climb: filling our existing positions and then seeing what we need to expand to meet service demands as well. And we need to put together some strategy of how we accomplish that.
Fair enough.
Next, I'm going to jump into our utility funds, starting with wastewater. So we're, as we have development occur, our wastewater system is expanding, and we're going to need to add on some additional employee resources. One of those is a SCADA control specialist, and SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. And it's basically our telemetry and electronic systems to monitor flows of our utilities and making sure pumps are running on time, and we're monitoring that activity. And as we increase our system, we need to add more support in that effort. And again, when we look at these positions in our utilities, these are also predicted in our utility plans and in our rate studies as we move forward over the next 6 years. Also, we're going to look at adding an engineer technician 3. This is another position that's going to provide more capacity for some of our senior level, because they'll be able to inventory, respond to questions and inquiries, and provide engineering skills for supporting those infrastructure and the folks out in the field. We also have two journey level technicians that are going to be set as positions, but they're going to have a zero value next to them for 2024. And we need to put a placeholder positions in for these two, because we need to, which I talked about later, we need to order a second Vactor truck to maintain our ability to service our sewer lines. Vactor trucks have a long lead time. I found out that it takes sometimes over a year and a half to come on, be delivered, because they have to be custom built. So when that truck is delivered, we need to make sure we're planning for those two positions to be able to operate that truck to come online as well in 2025. Next, in the water utility, it froze. In the water utility, we are, in our capital projects for this year, we're going to add 2 additional treatment wells. We currently have 1. And so we're adding a total of 3 treatment facilities. So with that, we're going to need to add on a senior water treatment technician to be able to help support. Now we'll have 2 positions to support the 3 facilities. And then again, just very similar in the wastewater utility, we also need to add an engineering technician 3 in our stormwater utility to again be able to do engineering design work and provide information. And then finally, for our added positions for the city, we're also going to add a SCADA technician. And this particular position will be housed in our INET, our Information Services Department, with providing tech support, but be designated for our water and sewer utilities to provide them technical support on operating the electronics associated with the SCADA system. We're starting to see it as we get more and more relying on technology to create efficiencies. We also have to have that support help to run that, and we need to start designating support to various departments because of the immediate need of services. So this person, while coordinating with our IS department, would be housed down at the shop facility so that they're seamless service to our employees down there. So, in summary, with the 9 additional employees for this year, that brings our total employee count up to 331 for the organization. And again, 80% of our total employee count is housed in the general fund and 20% in our enterprise fund. As we've talked about that, keeping pace with population growth, and again, this is just a thumb stretch barometer of how our level of service aligns with that. But in terms of full-time employees per 1,000 population, we increased slightly this year. But as you look at that line going back to 2010, we're having a challenge of trying to keep pace with the growth of the community and the additional programs and service needs that the community requires.
So is that 331 budgeted positions, or is that 331's like bombs and seats?
Those are budgeted positions.
So how many employees do we actually have?
That, so not counting the 9, going back to the previous number of 322, it varies from month to month as we do recruitments, but the last update I had about 3 weeks ago is we have about 290 employees in seats.
So, wow. So we're way under.
Yes.
As I recall, though, we've been at. That's right at about 10%, and as I recall, that's where we've been the last several years, right at about that 10%.
Yeah.
And then again, our biggest challenge, of course, is law enforcement recruitment because of the lead time for training, and that is a whole different challenge and scenario. But if the rest of the organization, that's not the same position being open. It's just a continual process because people retire, people leave for other jobs, and we're constantly in that recruitment site. And so our HR team, Leilani and her team do a great job of trying to maintain those recruitment services, employee benefits, and resources and support. But that's another indication too, as we move forward and the organization grows, the behind the curtain type of departments that provide that support also need to expand as well, and that's one of the challenges that we face.
And we know how difficult it is. Like, for example, Wade is going to be, Duffy is going to be retiring here, and 30-day or 60 days, wherever it may be. And it's like, we're not just losing him, we're losing him plus all those years of knowledge. So you hire someone and they're like, it's going to take them 10 years to get them cleaner or close to what Wade was providing. So there's that as well.
So going back to our budgetary pressures, this is a look at our payroll from year to year, and that includes a breakout for benefits as well as salaries. And so for 2024, in the general fund, our payroll is going to be just over $39 million. And that's about 7.6% increase from the previous year. And so when you look at that, that's roughly a $2.8 million increase just keeping the status quo. And with our general fund tax revenue coming in about 3.3, you can kind of see that it's fairly tight in trying to keep pace. Also, there's a big jump in that salary because there's a lot of factors that can go into it. One is the inflation that causes the COLA and health benefits to increase. But also, too, and the mayor just alluded to it, is we've had a lot of turnover in our organization over the last 3 or 4 years. If some of you attended the employee breakfast that we had last year, that was the first one we had since prior to the pandemic, and I asked a question, how many in this room, this is their first breakfast, and almost at least over a third raised their hand. And when you have a lot of new people coming in, they're generally starting low, and so you're having step increases, And so you see that turnover and they're coming in, especially with new positions, you see that step increase that occurs along with those COLA increases. So there's a lot of factors that go into that increase in salaries. So next, after employees, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about some of the public enhancements that we have funded in the budget for this year. Under the council priority of collaborative planning, again, we're going to be looking at the commissioning a study to analyze the cost benefit of potential annexation areas, primarily based on House Bill 1424, which provides a sales tax credit for annexation areas. But we have to do some fiscal analysis of how those services were used and be able to exercise that legislation for full value. So that was something that would be done starting at the beginning of the year. We also have found that our Jacob Smith House and McKinney House actually aren't on our historic register.
What?
And so we're going to be commissioning a study to have the documentation put together and make sure that it is recognized on our register. And I don't know if Jen would want to add, any
How
insight.
in the world are those two not on our historic register?
Yeah, so the McKinney House just recently is in the city boundary.
Yeah, I get that.
The Jacob Smith House, so as long as I've been here, which is almost 7 years, and as long as Aaron, our museum curator, has been here, is 10 years, we have thought that the Jacob Smith House is on the historic register.
Is there a plaque there?
Aaron cannot find any documentation that shows that it is actually on the historic register.
So we have
and
the
this
plaque.
was just a recent discovery
Okay,
in the
yeah.
last, 9 months or so. We're baffled by that.
So fortunately, we discovered it, and we felt that we needed to make sure we preserve our historical assets. And so we're going to commission a study to document it and prepare it so it's going to be placed on the historic register and memorialized.
And the Lake Lois feasibility study, is that what we're going to possibly do with the McKinney House?
Correct. That is taking a look at the McKinney House, looking at having a feasibility study that looks at the environmental restrictions, what can be developed on there in some upland area, and potentially set up a conceptual plan of how that property can be utilized for the public.
Very cool.
Under environmental stewardship, of course, we're going to continue with the PSC matching rebate program. There's about $70,000 that's been allocated for that interlocal or that agreement with PSC. And I'm losing track of time a little bit, but I think it's been operating for maybe over a month and a half. And to date, I'm pleased to report that we've had issued just over $9,000 in rebates to Lacey households.
Wow.
To
9,000 or 90?
9,000.
And there were 19 households that received that with 27 applications. And so we see some initial success, and again, it's thanks to Lindsay, our climate coordination, and also our public affairs team of getting the word out, but we're going to continue to try to get that word out, and if it is successful, we might be able to expand it to our commercial businesses. We're also going to continue with the LED streetlight replacement program. This is something that the council initiated several years ago, I want to say 8 years ago, and it's to continue to fund $200,000 a year to systematically replace all of our LED streetlights as they burn out or on schedule for maintenance. And then, of course, I put in there electric vehicle charging stations. That's another such initiative or implementation action that we incorporate with opportunistic, whether we see grants or development project like you saw earlier tonight with the RAC parking lot award. We saw the opportunity to use some reserves to put in charging stations. So that's an opportunistic action that we'll continue to work on as we do projects. In terms of the Lacey Library, we have found that the HVAC system in the building is quite old, and some of the parts and supplies for that are starting to be unavailable. And so before we are not able to get parts, supplies, or resources for it, we're going to look at replacing that HVAC system to a more modern equipment, and that's something that's easier to maintain. Yes, Councilor Stedman.
Is that equipment from 1991 when they had the expansion? Or the
You know, I'd have to go back and check. I believe so.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's original.
Because if so, I mean,
some of the-
1991 is over 30 years, so.
Some of the coolant that they have to use is what's going to be discontinued. And if we don't have the coolant in it, then it's going to be more problematic and more of an emergency. So we want to get ahead of the game and improve that and look at what type of efficiencies we can gain out of this new HVAC equipment. Back in the police department, one of the things that we're doing some programming is, again, the record management system replacement. And this is upgrading our programs for maintaining that police department records, but also more importantly, it's a regional-based system that we're buying into. And this is probably the opportunity to share data with our partners within the county, as well as have better communication as we work cases. Again, this is $475,000 to onboard the system. Then also ongoing cost will be about $103,000 a year. It's proportionate on a per capita basis. And then also too, we're going to be looking at establishing a north substation for police activity or police services. We're looking at least about $4,200 per year. And this is going to be similar to what we did down by Horizon Point, where we have a place where officers don't have to come all the way into City Hall to the police station to fill out paperwork or and coordinate their work. They can have a place they can stop and stay out in the patrol area on a longer duration.
So have you found this substation already, or are you looking for it, waiting for it to be budgeted, and then you're going to go look for it?
So currently we're using space that's being provided to us at CAC, and we're going to stay at that location. However, now there's a rent because it's an enhanced space and they're doing some remodeling. So it'll be more secure and better provided for the officers' needs. So there's an associated cost with that.
Oh, great. Thank you.
All right, and then next in program enhancements, I just want to these are familiar slides to the council, but I just want to again reiterate we're also maintaining these normal services that we've done in the past with the neighborhood grant program, and as I've seen those come through for as Jenny Bashfield and our public affairs office has managed, they're quite useful. They're quite they're quite popular. HOAs are taking advantage of that and improving their neighborhoods. And again, that goes back to creating higher quality neighborhoods, quality of life, and also community safety. Also, with that, what's not going to be shown on here is we also are continuing contracts with the Economic Development Council for business support and training services, as well as Together, GRUB, and we're including the Dispute Resolution Center based on council action earlier this year. Whoops. And then, of course, we're, hit the wrong button again. Continuing with funding of the Veteran Services Hub. And again, I just want to point out the value of this hub and its influence in the region. If you look at that, client appointments in 2022, over 17,500 client appointments. And if you look at the number for the past 2 years, that's more than 27,000. So exceeded 2022 or 2023 or 2022 and 2023. I think also too that's you're seeing the dust of the pandemic setting off and people getting out more. But again, this is a key service that we provide to our region, and I know it's well valued. Also, can't help but put a plug in that remind everybody that we have the Mayor's Gala, Lacey Mayor's Gala tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, where we'll be at a fundraiser for the Veteran Services Hub.
And I'll put a quick plug in. This is actually a really good investment for our community as well. Yes, there's a cost, but last year alone, the Lacey Veteran Services Hub brought in about $2.5 million in back pay and assistance to veterans in Thurston County alone. And so directly tied to the Lacey Veteran Services Hub. So yes, there's a cost, but they're actually putting dollars back into our community as well.
It's probably one of the most important and best things we've done. I've been on council 12 years. Andy's at, 14 years or so. Probably, I would say, in the top 1, 2, 3 things we've done in that entire time.
Yeah.
So.
I've always appreciated the council's full support on that. Yeah.
All right, now we'll switch into our capital budget. And again, this is where we see a large number in the capital budget, $68 million are anticipated for this coming year. And the first topic is, of course, our police station. And again, I mentioned earlier in my introduction that this is a critical piece of, a critical need for our police department. It also, again, it doesn't come cheaply. It's $61.5 million. However, the city is able to fund that, and the council is able to fund that using just over $44 million in reserves, as well as $17 million in limited tax general obligation bonds, and using future REIT revenues to pay off those bonds. What we'll see is we're currently out for advertisement for bids for the police station. Hopefully, as we saw earlier tonight with the bid for the RAC parking lot, we're hoping that it would come under our estimate in a more favorable bidding climate. And then if there are bids acceptable and everything goes as planned, then we could be entering contract and even starting breaking ground sometime around January, February, the first of the year. Again, it will be open in 2025. And again, this will be a state-of-the-art space for the police staff. It will also include a community space and training room that can also be repurposed for our EOC in the event of a response. And it also provides safe places for custody exchange and e-commerce. So there's a dual purpose with serving the public as well as serving the needs for our operations of our police department. This is the next project that we had a briefing to the council at the last work session on the timing, but the Greg Coolio Park. We are looking to continue moving forward on that project and finishing up design in 2024 and looking to be able to get out the bid at the second half of 2024 and move forward on Coolio Park. Also, too, there's again, this is a state-of-the-art. I think the council is pretty well aware of it, and it's been a priority project of the council for some time. We also have some funding to replace the playground equipment at Bush Park down off of Yelm Highway. This equipment is due for replacement. It's starting to get the wear and tear, and so that's a budget item about $442,000. And this is a good example of how we can't do it alone all the time, and we have great community organizations that are looking to give back to the community. And so in this particular case, we have a commitment letter from Gateway Rotary to, they have raised $110,000 to go towards this project. And then also, once we get moving on it, we may have the opportunity to seek grant funding from RCO grants to also buy down the cost. But again, we need to move forward on it this year to start replacing that equipment for our neighborhoods down there. And again, that's the same thing that could happen with Coolio Park, is we might see some local community service organizations start raising dollars to do enhancements as well there. I won't spend much time on this. You approved the award of the bid tonight for the RAC enhancements. That will be a definite nice addition to the RAC, and it does get very busy. The parking lot gets full, especially for bus parking and RVs. And then finally, I mentioned this earlier, the Transportation Benefit District. We're looking at having $4.6 million in projects planned for 2024 with street overlay and rehabilitation. And, again, in addition to that $4.6 million, we're also going to be looking to spend a total of about $5.3 with $500,000 for sidewalk maintenance and another $200,000 performing crack seal to extend the life of some of our pavements in our streets in the community. And then the last one I want to highlight specifically is the College Street Extension. This is a project that has it's been on the books for quite some time. We're still in the process to finalizing the last bit of right-of-way, but we are programming it to go out for construction in 2024. And this is a connection that's been needed for many, many years, identified as a need. It will connect College Street by 6th Avenue Northeast, north to 15th Avenue. And this will also help remedy the flow of traffic that goes through some of the neighborhoods out there that I know council is very aware of. And I do want to throw out and thank Scott Eggers' Public Works team, as well as Shannon's Public Affairs team, to help working with those neighborhoods to find some temporary solutions until we can get this built and hopefully hopefully those reduce the pressure on those streets. And of course, it's gotten, more so over time with the growth that's been happening up in the northeast area, and especially on 15th Avenue, that we just see an increase in traffic coming down through that corridor. So this is a key project that will hopefully make a difference for the movement of vehicles out in that area.
And that's going to have like sidewalks, bike lanes, and
Yep.
the full meal deal?
Yes, and it also, we just showed the connection from the existing pavement of College and 6th North, but it will also have improvements to 6th Avenue all the way out to Slater Kinney, as well as down to College Street with restriping and channelization, and I believe also some pavement as well. So it is something that will have, it'll be a full multimodal corridor. And then, and finally, the other items we have on the capital projects in transportation include the Carpenter Road and Britton Parkway, College Street and 16th Avenue roundabout right-of-way, the College Street and 29th roundabout right-of-way with some additional design. And then I mentioned it earlier with the investments in Midtown, we're starting design of the College Street and 7th Avenue roundabout, about $400,000 there. We're still working with MGR Development and St. Martin's Abbey on an agreement for the footprint of that. But we want to get started on design.
Rick, the Carpenter Road, Britton Parkway roundabout, that's actually going to be built in '24?
Yes.
It is, okay.
Yes. Now moving on to special revenue. We have basically $650,000 in our special revenue budget. It's made up of primarily two funds. One is the Hicks Lake Management District. And this is a situation where the Hicks Lake Management District formed with an effort to protect and improve the water quality of the lake with certain enhancement projects. And they agreed to assess themselves and then collect that assessment to do those projects. We are acting as a fiduciary where we'll collect those funds and do the assessment for them. And then the Lake Management Board, District Board, will then identify projects, authorize those projects, and authorize us to pay for those projects through that assessment that we collect. So it's a nice little feature for our community to be able to manage and improve water quality as well as the ambience of the lake.
Does that 48,000 include the additional assessments that will be collected by the multifamily that's coming in there?
That's, I don't think that's on the books yet, because I think because those haven't broken ground, and once they come online and have that increased value, that assessment will increase once they open up. The next category, of course, is our lodging tax fund, and we have a lodging tax committee that monitors those funds and awards those funds for programs that, or for applications or community events that promote tourism, as well as funding tourism-related facilities. It's made up of hoteliers, as well as representative of events, and then also our deputy mayor serves as the chair on that lodging tax committee. This year, the budget for the lodging tax is $600,000. Again, our assessment comes from hotels and motels, a total of about 7 that have about 532 rooms. And of course, that's a per night tax, a stay tax, and at a rate of 4%. So this year, in making the recommendation we incorporated the recommendation of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee into the budget. The $600,000 will be going towards several projects ranging from capital projects of supporting activities at the RAC, which is one of the largest draws for the county. If not, it's the largest draw of the county for bringing people in for events. We also have support for the Washington Performing Arts Center as well as the Lacey Museum. And then a series of events that also the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee has identified that bring people into the community or have multi-day events. And then, of course, marketing. And you can see up there the breakdown of percentage of the total budget awarded to each one of those categories. Again, this year, they received about 27 applications from a total of 21 organizations and awarded out $600,000 in funds. So now we're going on to the enterprise funds of the water, sewer, and stormwater utilities. 2024, we're going to see a total budget of about just over $134 million. A lot of that is going on maintenance and operation as well as capital projects. Just as a reminder for the community and the council, our utility funds are again made up of a water system, the sanitary sewer system, as well as stormwater. Our water system, made up of 20 wells and 400 miles of water mains, provides 2.7 billion gallons of water annually to the community. And that's a big operation. Likewise, our wastewater system is made up of 48 sewer lift stations with over 200 miles of sewer mains and take away about 1.5 billion gallons of sewer annually. And then finally, our stormwater, which has over 100 miles of stormwater pipe and 47 different stormwater facilities and 5,200 catch basins. And so those systems have a lot of components to them, and they take a lot of staff, high-quality staff, great staff to go out and maintain those facilities. So we'll jump into, real quickly, the water utility. And this is a slide that shows the current capital improvement program that's based off of the Water Comprehensive Plan. And over the 6 years from 2022 to 2027, there's about $136 million of improvements to the water system. For 2024, we're expecting to spend about $38 million in capital projects. So again, with our water system plans, they always come with what are the needs to maintain and grow the system to meet with growth. They also take a financial plan. And in order to afford this capital improvement program and continue to meet the needs of the community, there is also a rate structure. And since 2023, that's identified a percentage increase to the rates of 5.25% annually throughout. And this is what we'll be proposing to the council in the budget for this year. And then we also will look at that longer term and that multi-year rate conversation. One other thing too, that in the water utility is we're going to be incurring a little bit of debt. We got the opportunity to apply for a Public Works trust. I'm going to use the old language. It's a different term now. Public Works Trust Board or Trust Fund. And what that does is provides from the state a low interest loan for capital projects that we can take advantage of. And I mentioned earlier that we need to add 2 new pH treatment facilities out in our water system. And we were able to secure a $10 million loan from the state, less than 2% interest, to be able to go towards those 2 projects. In wastewater, again, this is the wastewater capital improvement program, and over that same 6-year period, we're looking at $53 million investment, 17 million of those in 2024. And same thing with the water utility. We have a rate structure plan moving forward to meet those obligations. And in 2024, we're looking at that same 9.5% increase that has been predicted with the water plan. This will raise the Lacey and lot charges, combined charge, to about $80.98 a month, which is just a little bit around $4 a month.
How much of that is lot?
The lot is about $48.91, and Lacey's portion of that is $32.06. And the Lacey portion will be going up about $2.78 from the previous year. And also, too, with the wastewater, we have a lot of projects planned. And if we are able to achieve all those projects this year and don't have any delays, we will look at, going out for some revenue bonds in about $5.25 million to be able to achieve those projects. But that's dependent on construction schedules, design, and then, of course, the bidding climate. So this is an example or a bar chart comparing this year's maintenance and operation capital and debt schedule for all three utilities to the previous year. And as you can see that by that chart, the water utility is, budget is about $73 million, and it has a substantial increase in capital projects at just under $39 million. And then, of course, the identified debt associated with it. Wastewater is about, again, $51 million, and the biggest difference in that chart is looking at issuing debt. And then the stormwater utility is staying fairly consistent and is looking at a $10 million budget for this year, or this 2024. And again, this is looking at overall utility rates in the city of Lacey compared to last year. And as you can see on the left-hand column, you have 2023 at $127.84 for stormwater, lot, wastewater, City Lacey wastewater, and City of Lacey water per household. It's based on 700 cubic feet of water, which is the benchmark consumption level for residential. You see that increasing to $134.61 for 2024. So now we'll move on. What's going to be specified in those capital improvement projects? We'll move on to some of those utility improvements. I mentioned a couple of times, this is the pH treatment facilities out at the Madrona Well site as well as Westside Well. Combined, it's going to be about $14.5 million. And again, this is to treat the alkalinity into the water to get it to a neutral basis to meet state standards. Also of note this year is we'll be moving forward with the Tomey Park Utility Local Improvement District. This is a $3 million project. The district was formed in the previous years, or 2 years ago, and now we're ready to move forward with design for a septic conversion project in that area.
When do we plan on annexing them into the city of Lacey?
Well, that's also going to be part of that annexation study we look at and how we do that and take the benefit of House Bill 1454. But that is one of the things that will be looked at in that study. And then, of course, those were the two highlighted projects, but we have a whole list of projects in the utility funds that total about another $16.4 million. That includes finishing up the continued work on the Terry Cargo Reservoir out at Corporate Center Drive and Telco Loop, College Street extension of water, and several lift station replacements and improving some stormwater lines. The other thing I just want to mention too is it also includes water main in College Street. We took the opportunity with the College Street extension project to save a little dollars in combined projects and make sure we have a good looping of our water main system. Constantly looking at making sure we maintain pressure and water flow for fire. Now here's a little bit of some good news for us in terms of debt. This 2024, we're looking at a total about just over $1 million of debt service for 2024. This slide just kind of articulates where we are in terms of city-issued debt down at the right-hand corner of the blue shade at $10 million. And the outline of the blue shade going up to the top right that shows what is the statutory limit of debt we can impose. Now, as I was talking to our finance director, I said, well, 7.5%, that's a lot, and how do you take that on? Well, there's other safeguards, too, in terms of debt limit. So each one of the utilities has a 2.5% limit, so you probably would exceed one of those before you receive the full statutory 7.5%. But this is also just to articulate that we have capacity to look at this as potential strategic investments going forward. And also, too, we've been very conscious of how we have spent debt and buying it down, and we're actually going to have some debt come off the books coming in 2024, which is help to our taxpayers.
Can you go back one slide real quick?
Yes.
Can you go back one slide? So the 940 is 7.5% of our assessed value?
Yes, I'm sorry.
So to understand,
Yeah.
just so everybody knows.
Yeah, that is 7.5% of our total assessed value.
Currently, we are at 10.3 of that 940.
Well, and actually, our assessed value is increasing. It's actually, that shows our the maximum we can borrow, but our assessed value going into 2024 is that $12.1 billion number. So this is some exciting news. So we've issued 2 voter-approved bonds over the past 10 years for parks improvements, and the 2012 unlimited tax general obligation bond has been paid in full this year, so that will go off the books. So we have 1 remaining voter-approved bond that will be part of the property tax assessment, and the table to the right shows what the outstanding balance is, $1 million, that the annual payment will be, and we're looking at the excess levy rate to pay that off, and we're looking to pay that off at the end of 2026 in December. So that's another voter-approved bond that will go off the books.
Actually, in 2012 and 2015, we refinanced those.
Yes,
We didn't
thank
issue them for the first time. We refinanced those in 2012 and 2015.
Thank you for that clarification, because these are, again, parks improvements that came from the early 2000s, included Rainier Vista Park and several other parks improvements throughout the community. So thank you for that clarification. And then this table shows all of our different debt obligations out there. So we have 5 different, starting from top to bottom. We have some revenue bonds for water and stormwater. The revenue bonds for the LID that I just, for an LID 24. And then, of course, it shows the 2012 refinancing bond going off the books. And then our 2015 I just mentioned. And then, of course, the 2015 limited term bonds for the RAC Phase 2, and that's funded out of the PFD district. And so all in all, our total annual payments around $1.6 million on that debt, and our balance, total bond balance is that $10.3 million number.
Just for clarification, can you explain why a couple of them say refunded?
I'm going to turn over to our finance director, Troy.
That is the term we use for refinance. So as the mayor stated, we have gone through the process and evaluating when it makes sense to refinance those bonds. So when you see refunded, that means we have indeed refinanced those at a lower rate and thus saved the taxpayers' interest.
Thank you.
So internal services funds. So this is the about just over $8 million in budget. This is the fund that we use to replace or have our annual equipment rental fund, where we charge ourselves the amount to replace vehicles when they become ready to replace. And this year, this is the breakout of those funds. So we're going to spend about $4.5 million on maintaining and replacing our vehicles and our city fleet, and then another $3.5 million for all the computer still fans, iPads, all the technology equipment. For our vehicle replacement, this is basically our shopping list. And this is the equipment we're going to be going out and replacing this year, and a total price tag about $2.3 million. You have the Vector truck that I mentioned earlier. Again, that's about just over $700,000 purchase, all the way down to the Capote RT at the rack. And then we're, of course, going to include 4 police replacement vehicles and several shop maintenance vehicles in that purchase.
Do we actually think we'll get any of them in 2024? I know we're going to order them, but will we actually get it?
Brian Gugelmo's down at the shop, our head mechanic. He's confident that, the electric vehicles are another thing, but also too, that's given us time to also plan out for electric vehicle purchases. I forgot to mention this earlier in our climate action, but to plan out how we set up the infrastructure to support those as well. So, but he's constantly working on this and keeping Troy and I informed. So,
What's up with a couple of Chevys in there? Why don't we just stick with Ford? just kidding.
there's a change. We're doing a side-by-side comparison. It's kind of like the old taste test.
Okay.
So now it comes down to this last little stretch, the value proposition. And this is something too, that I think it's important for the community as well as council and staff to know. So this is kind of how we're looking at in terms of property taxes compared to other bills that the people in the public may have. And this is kind of those exercises. So currently, with the 2024 property tax estimate based on a $500,000 home, again, we have the median sale price I mentioned very at the beginning of the presentation, comes out to about $373.84 in city property tax. Compare that to an average cell phone bill of $2,000 a year, or average car payment or cable bill, and that cost of a new iPhone. Now, I tried to replace that, but there was some type of password select on that I couldn't change the iPhone reference. Next, kind of how that property tax is collected, because there is a big property tax bill that goes out to a property owner, and this slide is a really good slide that shows that out of the total property tax collection, only about 8% of that comes to the city. And so that's, you think about the services the city provides, from street maintenance, the police patrol and public safety, to all the general government services. There is quite a big value there to the community. And of course, as you see, school districts at 4%, the state at 24%, all for schools. So that's quite a bit for schools, on down to some of our junior taxing districts.
The state's piece is all for schools as well?
I believe so, yep.
A large part of it's for schools.
Large part of it. And then decide by 2023 to 2024 comparison. So in 2023, with an average home price of $525, or value at $525. Again, I mentioned that the assessed values came down from previous year this year. Came out with the regular levy tax rate and excess rates down to a property tax bill for the city at $384. And you look over to 2024 with the decrease in valuation, and the big difference is part of that voter-approved bond excess levy came off with the 2012 refinance bill, comes down to $373.84, so $10 less than what that home may have paid last year. But there's a lot of factors that go into that as well, and of course, it's in the property tax, so it may not be as noticeable with all the other pieces of that property tax bill.
So, Troy, when do you think we're going to, how comfortable are you with that point, that levy rate right now? Obviously, we're still waiting for assessed value to totally come in. We have there's several factors that play into this rate. I'm surprised I know we're seeing property, the levy or property rates, values go down, and that's a big deal. But we've also, just think about how much we've added here in Lacey. I mean, we're out on the on the tour not too long ago. We're seeing all this new construction, all that. That's a considerable addition to our levy, our what's going on the rolls. So, do you think it's really going to go to 0.71?
Well, there's a 100% chance I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So I'll start with that. But I think the change is going to be very minor. So what is not in this number is the refund levy. So that, I actually have that number, but we didn't have that in the budget. That refund levy is about $135,000. So that's going to be added, which means the rate will go up slightly due to that fact.
Sure.
We will probably get 2 or 3 more changes to the new construction number before the council actually adopts the rates or the levy itself. But that number typically doesn't move a whole lot. So we're adding about $180 million this year. And like I said, I don't expect that to change too much, but it will definitely change. And that will, depending if it goes up or down, will impact that number. But I think that's going to be very close. It might actually get closer to 72 cents per thousand, or maybe a little bit higher.
Okay. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, you talked about it being 58, 57.
And then one last slide is a comparison from 2023 budget to the current 2024 budget with the change in property tax as well as the utility rates. Even if the increase of utility rates in 2024, but the reduction in that property tax, you're at $5.87 less. However, again, like I said earlier, property tax is collected differently. People won't see that, and they will also see what their utility bill is on a monthly basis. So I just want to put that caveat in there, but this is just a general comparison for city services overall. So next, public participation. This is the final corner of the lap of the budget process. And so next we'll start going into some scheduled public hearings. So we're going to have a series of 3 public hearings coming up in November and December. The first being November 2nd, we're planning on having a hearing on revenue sources. This is going to be looking at the all tax revenue sources, but also specifically on the exercise of the 1% option on the property tax, as well as the utility rates. Then on the 16th, we have scheduled for the first of the 2 required hearings on the budget. These would be opportunities for the community to come in and provide comments or requests to the council. And then after the second hearing on December 7th, the council will be queued up to adopt the final budget on December 21st. And again, this is a lot of information, and the budget doc is very thick, but it is available online at the web address on the screen, as also by that QR code, or they can contact the City of Lacey, and we'll be able to direct them to how they can find access to the budget. Again, this has been a very good year in terms of moving forward despite all the transitions and the experience that the city has faced, and we're pleased to present to the council a proposed balanced budget for 2024. And again, I want to thank all the director staff for all their diligence and work in preparing this budget and their requests. Troy and Christy and Chelsea and his finance team of putting together all the nuts and bolts and numbers. Shannon's public affairs team, Donna and John and everybody that put together this presentation and the graphics and everything. And again, the entire organization for their diligence in providing key services to the community with the public accountability in mind. So with that, I hand the budget off to the council and be happy to respond to any questions, as well as our director team over on the other side of the room.
Any questions?
We did it as we went.
Well, first of all, I just want, good job, Rick. Obviously, this.
First budget.
Yeah, I mean, we know how hard this is, and you're sort of obviously thrown into the fire on this one, and I can appreciate how difficult it is to take in your first budget, especially when all the needs of a growing community. I know it's so hard because I realize your requests come in from all the directors, and we only have so much money, and you have to make some really hard decisions. And I just appreciate you. Your first budget here. It looks like a great budget. I'm proud of it. I think this whole council should be proud of it too. So congratulations on that.
Well, again, it's the team effort, which is the Lacey way.
I do want to give a heads up to the public and to this council. Thursday is going to be this November is going to be a busy November. There's 2 council meetings in here, and I know that that November 16th we have a couple council members that are going to be out of town. Deputy Mayor is going to be out of town, and Councilmember Stedman's going to be out of town. I'm also going to be out of town all of November.
So am I.
Okay. and Robin's going to be out as well. So the quorum's going to exist because I think you guys are going to try to come in remotely.
I'll be remote.
But my recommendation is that that Lenny actually runs the meeting here
in the room.
Even though you guys are remotely, but Lenny runs that meeting because it makes more sense to do that. And that's on that November 16th. I'm also gone on November 2nd. I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks in November.
I will not be gone.
So you'll be here for November 2nd. Okay, so November 2nd, Deputy Mayor, you got November 16th. Lenny's gonna be running the meeting, and you guys need to make sure you guys at least have a quorum, because we have to get through that budget hearing. And so I know it's tough, you're gonna be on the East Coast, but we really need to hear for the quorum for that.
I'll be here.
And are you okay with running the meeting there, Lenny? Okay.
Councilmember Vasquez has a motion.
Councilmember Vasquez? Uh-oh.
We got
Can
nothing.
you not hear me?
No. Oh,
Well, I will be in India, so I
Okay.
will not be at the council meeting.
Okay,
India.
so India, but there'll still be a quorum.
To actually take action, though, I think, at that meeting to nominate a chair, I think is how we have to do it. That's what we've done in the past. Yes.
Sure. At that meeting, I do yeah, there'll be a motion to nominate you the chair of the meeting. So that's my recommendation, at least. Okay. With that, is there any other questions from this council? I see that we've hit what I call the witching hour. Been here for two and a half hours. Is there any reports that you feel like you have to give tonight, or can we push off reports till another time?
Do not have to.
Okay, well, with that, I say that we push off our reports to another time, which means that we've reached the end of our agenda. Thank you. Good job, Rick, on your first budget presentation. Without objection, I will call this meeting adjourned, and as always, you keep it classy, Lacey, and I'll see the public in December. Keep it classy.